Yahweh's got a whole different sort of time frame perspective than we do. See, if we get away with something, we think, oh, because I've had people do something, and it could be something, whatever it is, and it has nothing to do with Torah necessarily, but they'll do something, they'll do it wrong, but it worked, and they'll do it wrong for a few times, and it worked. And then they'll get convinced that they're doing it right. And then all of a sudden, they'll do it one more time, and it blows up. Even though I told them that's not the right way to do it. See, but just because you did it doesn't make it right. I'm going to use a really bad analogy here from my ill-gotten youth. But for example, if you were playing Blackjack, okay, the total you're looking for is 21. And let's say you have 20, and you take a card and you get an ace. Oh, it worked, I got 21. Let's say you did this 3 or 4 times. You may start to think that's a smart move. Okay, when it's a very dumb move. Do you see what I'm saying? So the result is not the measure of whether or not something's right or wrong. You can still get a result that's desired doing something that's wrong. That doesn't make it or prove that it was right. Am I making some sense here? So we have to be careful that we're not measuring what we're doing against the result. We need to measure it against the word. Because the result we're looking for is, what does Yeshua say? We're laying up treasures where? In heaven. So you may not get the result that you think you should be getting here now. Because that's treasure for later. You know, it's like I've often talked about in ministry with other people, is that we have this problem with reaping and sowing. We want to reap exactly where we sowed and immediately. Doesn't work that way. Excuse me, it doesn't work that way. You know, I've seen people sow into a space, and then they'll stand over it with their arms crossed, tapping their toe, going, come on, I'm waiting to reap right here. Meanwhile, there's 8 feet of harvest behind them because of what they sowed in front. And so they are reaping because of what they sowed, but they want to reap it right there. Oh, excuse me, but there's 8. No, tell me about that. I sowed right here. You see, that's how we can get. Because we don't understand that it's not that type for type. But you will reap because you sowed. Oh, but you know, because I had people say to me years ago when I would give people scriptures, they'd be like, well, that person was just visiting and they live 5 states away and you'll never see them again and they're not going to ever send you a check and blah. I said, that's not why I sowed. I sowed because it was right to sow. I'm not expecting to reap from them. I'm just expecting to reap. Do you see what I'm saying? And so if you have an expectation that you reap because you sow, then if you're doing what's right, it doesn't matter if you don't reap right away. If you're doing what's wrong, it doesn't matter if you don't get punished right away. You know you're going to reap. And that's what Ecclesiastes is talking about. That's also what Jeremiah is talking about here, what Yahweh's saying through them, is that you're going to reap. Don't get confused because it's not immediate and not in the way that you thought. Because we could easily fall into that false comfort of thinking, oh, I got away with it. And maybe I didn't just get away with it. Maybe it's actually okay. Because the first time you did it, you might have thought I got away with it. But then what about 3, 4, 5, 6 times later? Now you may think, well, I got away with it so many times. Maybe it's just okay to do. Now your whole thought process is completely changed. And now you're really in deep, deep trouble. Because now you've really convinced yourself that something is okay that's not okay. By the way, that's part of why we have trouble when we talk to mainstream Christians trying to convince them about certain things, because they've been doing what they've been doing, and they can show you how they've reaped all this wonderful stuff. And they're misconnecting it. Sure, they are receiving stuff, but it's not because they're doing the wrong thing. And we have to be careful that we're not misconnecting the dots. Something that if you have proper leadership can help you to do. Because you can come to the leadership and say, I'm connecting these dots. Am I right or wrong here? Am I connecting this with this action? Is this action led to this thing? Because we can get that way. You know, I was in a meeting one time, and the guy leading the meeting walked near a certain plant. There was like a big giant plant, you know, like one of those potted plants, that's 5 feet tall things. And every time he approached that, a car horn honked outside the building. And so we started to connect every time he'd walk over by the plant, that he was going to make a car horn honk. Because it happened like 4 times. But you see how we can wrongly connect? There was no car honking because he stood near the plant. But the coincidence started to make us all think, wow, every time you go over there, hey, walk over by that plant again and see what happens, There's some, strange timing things can happen. When I was in Colorado, I just gotten up. Of course, I got up later than everybody as usual, and they were all sitting eating breakfast already. And I walked in, and I had my phone in my hand, and they said, come to breakfast. And I had the charger and the guy in my hand, and the person said, why do you need to charge your phone? I mean, it's just morning, it's breakfast. I said, because it's going to ring. And as soon as I said that, the phone rang. I'm not kidding. As soon as I said, because it's going to ring, bring. But that's complete coincidence. I didn't make anything happen. So we have to be careful that we're not connecting dots in the wrong way.